Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Most Important Conversations. I'm here with my co-host, Jenna, and we are talking about relationships as usual. Today, we are talking about the 4 different attachment styles that Jenna was just sharing with me, that there seems to be all the buzz going on around the social media sphere right now. Everyone's talking about, which style are you? Oh, how do I become more like that style? This kind of thing's going on right now. So, or maybe it's not like
They are
that,
not
Jenna.
doing that. It's more like, why isn't he texting me back?
Yeah.
What do I do when they ice me out? Mostly anxious
So,
and avoidant.
well, let's go through them. So there's anxious and avoidant are kind of the common ones, right? I would assume.
Yeah.
And then there's the more or less common ones are disorganized and secure. And so let's first talk about the more common ones that kind of people find themselves in, and then that'll help sort of juxtapose the less common ones that people should also be aware of. And so let's start with anxious and avoidant.
Yeah, let's just focus on anxious and avoidant because the secure is the goal for everybody. So the dismissive avoidant is just another different type of avoidant.
But what about the disorganized people?
Well, there's dismissive and there's disorganized. And the thing is, if we just talk about avoidant, it's just intimacy triggers you and you need to get away. So there's a push pull. There's still some dynamic of I'm pulling away, no matter how it comes about. But then the anxious one is struggling to get contact.
I see. So disorganized is kind of like everything everywhere all at once, just depending on the moment. Like I could be anxious, I could be avoidant. It's very circumstantial. It's very reactive. It kind of just depends.
Yeah, unpredictable. Yes, it's
Yeah.
just extremely uncentered. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just in reaction to, as opposed to sort of a consistent style.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
let's
the
talk
goal is
about anxious
secure.
avoidance. So the anxious attachment style tends to be really clingy, tends to be highly emotional, reactive. It's always seeking reassurance. It always wants validation and attention and acknowledgement and all of these sorts of things. And if a person who is of this particular persuasion, this anxious persuasion, they're never sort of at peace with themselves. There's nothing there, right? So they need it from outside of them. They need that constant assurance. So in the dating world, this is the why isn't he texting me back people, right?
And then there's a complete dysregulation. Even if you're a very smart person, I work with really professional, mostly women, and they're like, "What is wrong with me? I am freaking the F out." And it's because it's your emotional reality, the abandonment stuff, longing, like you can't put a lid on it the same way because it's so intense. And so it really throws people off, which is why they Google it, which is why there's a bunch of content creators talking about this phenomenon. They do some really great, there's some great advice out there. Like there's a bunch of advice out there, and we're going to focus on the same thing you should focus on whether you're in a relationship or not is how are you relating to yourself in reality? How can you come back to your center? Because that will help you in every arena of your life. And that is the answer to both of these scenarios either. So if you're an avoidant and feeling your feelings is too intense, so you opt out of them and you create distance because it's too intense, that's still you doing a cycle where it's going to disempower you in other areas of your life, where you're going to lose the thing that you actually love because of your inability to feel your feelings and self-regulate and not feel engulfed by this person's need and be in your center. So in both cases, being in your center is the solution. Being in your center meaning neither of this push-pull. You're not shut down. You're not desperately seeking.
Yeah. So both of these are trauma responses. And that, if someone's avoidant, they're distant, they're detached from their emotions. So they're look likely repressing their emotions. They avoid being close to people. They avoid being intimate with people. More sort of the roommate, I guess, kind of style
Once
of
it gets
relationship.
real. So they might be very charismatic in the beginning and very drawn to the depth of an emotional person, and then they ice out as soon as it gets intense or real, or as soon as there's the risk of actual loss. So that it's all about the growth of intimacy. So as intimacy grows, that's where this stuff is going to get ruffled up.
These are the people who would break off a relationship as soon as it starts to get really real.
Absolutely. That is them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to do it so you can't hurt me.
Yeah. And they don't think that thought.
Yeah.
They just feel the out of control feeling. They go, oh, I feel this way about you. Must be you.
Yeah.
It must be this. This must be wrong because this feeling must be telling me something true. People don't understand feelings, right? So yeah, this is where a lot of people are suffering. And then how they show love is different, how their communication styles are different. And so there's a lot to be worked on in relationships with this.
So I've been saying for years that, what we call in whole life architecture emotional sobriety, and what we call in our program as well, we'll be dealing with that same concept. But what we call emotional sobriety, which is not just another fancy way of saying emotional intelligence, is actually a lot more to it. It includes emotional intelligence. But the world of emotional sobriety is this ability to fully feel your emotions with not being in reaction to them, to be able to be a response to them, to be able to glean the wisdom that our emotions are trying to tell us, to help us guide. They're a guidance system. When we have a proper relationship to our emotions, they can become a guidance system and a source of wisdom, so that we can kind of navigate life. And I've said for years that emotional sobriety is going to be the superpower of the next century.
Yeah, for sure.
When you look at, I think part of the reason these two anxious and avoidant attachment styles are starting to kind of bubble up in social media is because we have become so dysregulated and so separated from one another that we don't even know how to relate to one another anymore. It's almost like doubling down. Any trauma that we had that contributed to our attachment style is being amplified by social media, by the sort of the look at me attention culture that we have, and this sort of freneticism that comes as a result of this. So it's no surprise to me that people are interested in trying to educate and understand where they sit on this continuum.
And it's not new. It's been around.
These have been around forever. Mm-hmm. But I would say that and this is pure speculation, but I would say that here's another way of looking at it. Just humor me for a second, okay? Because I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey here. So the information sphere we're living in right now is something that we have an emotional relationship to. We've always had an emotional relationship to how we get information and what that information does inside of us, how it makes us feel, what it makes us think, how it makes us perceive the world. And in the world are other people. And so it affects how we perceive others. And the information sphere, I went to lunch in the Rocky Mountains last week, and they had a newspaper on the table. There's like the Rocky Mountain Times or something like that, right? And I picked it up and I started flipping through it, and I was like, oh, this is an experience I haven't had in a long time, a newspaper. Mm-hmm. And then I started looking at it and I was like, this is super interesting. So a newspaper is a highly concentrated and curated body of information. The editor decides what stories are in and out, what don't get in. And this is how we used to get our information. It was like nightly news or morning news and newspaper. And so our information world was very restricted and very condensed. And so the way that we perceived each other and related to each other in relationship was highly affected by the very narrow and curated information world in which we lived in. And we were all kind of stuck in the same very sort of center bubble of this information world. And then the internet comes along and kind of blows that out of the water. Suddenly we're exposed to other belief systems, other opinions, and as it pertains to relationships, other people's opinions of what's a good relationship, a bad relationship. It's no longer just your 5 friends that you're hanging out with whose opinions you're listening to. It's now 5 million people on your on blogs, and then social media comes out, and now we're scrolling, and so we're in this, the information sphere has gone like this, which has created this situation where I think less people are feeling confident and safe around who they are, and less confident and safe in terms of how they relate to others. And so I think we're just seeing, it's not that this is new, but it's being sort of ratcheted up and amplified, because now we're in the sort of attention economy, the comparison economy. We're constantly being bombarded with different views about what a good relationship looks like, what a bad relationship looks like, and so we're almost overwhelmed. And I think it's sort of amplifying anxiety for the anxious people and avoidance for the avoidant people. I think this is what's going on. I'm just observing what's happening right now.
I mean, it's already in existence. So they're just looking up what they are experiencing. And as we said, the avoidants aren't looking. They,
Yeah. The avoidants are
they're
avoiding
not looking.
everything.
They don't care. They're like,
Yeah.
and it's not that they don't care. Sorry. They care. They don't.
So have you never
care.
had an avoidant client?
They wouldn't be seeing me to fix the avoidance. They would be seeing me to fix the relationship, not lose somebody. It's like when shit gets real. When they see that the consequences to their habits are hurting more than their habit. But they're not going to be like, how do I fix this thing? Like, it has to be when the consequences get big enough. Whereas the anxious person, the consequences are kind of always top of mind. Like,
right.
Why don't I feel, they don't have a sense of, it's like the beauty of denial, right? So the avoidance, like, la, 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 I'm just going to wash my car and go to work and check this thing and go to this ball game or whatever. And they're not always men, but, and anyway, obviously watch ball games, but like, just saying, they're not going to come get work done unless they can see that the consequences of them continuing on. They're practical people. So then they will try to fix something, but it won't be for themselves necessarily in the beginning until later.
So from your perspective on the therapy side of things, avoidant people are probably tougher to reach because they're not, reaching out. They're not looking for solutions.
Well, they'll be part
help.
of the relationship dynamic. So if they're in the relationship dynamic and they love the person, then they will be curious, but they'll also be like, and this is just how I am. So the big problem is overly identifying with your attachment style. It's not who you are. It's something that you're experiencing. And so when people are Googling this, it's actually good because like, oh, this is a dynamic that's happening. And so I would advise anybody to like, don't overly get into, like, you don't want to over-identify as an anxious attachment person. It's like, oh, these symptoms have a pathway to more security. And the best advice is always to focus on yourself in a way that your relationship to yourself grows. So that
that's a secure attachment style.
Exactly. Well, that's how you heal the attachment styles as you become secure. Yeah. So the secure, and that can like, it's all waverable, right? So like something could bring up an anxious feeling. We're a bonded species, so we actually need that connection from somebody. So when we don't get it, it can bring up anxiety, and then the avoidant just won't let themselves feel the anxiety, or they'll distract themselves faster or leave instead of come and be like, hey, let's talk this out. So both are reactions though, right? So we don't want to like overly talk about it or overly run away from it. We want to be somewhere in the middle.
And yet I wonder if these styles at the end of the day even really matter. And here's what I mean by that. Because I think the bigger challenge for people to wrestle with is just to own how they're feeling, whether it's anxious or avoidant, and get curious about how to become whole and complete, which we would call secure, in and of themselves. Like, I guess my point is that a lot of sort of the internet and social media is a great place for you to go down a dark hole of trying to overanalyze, yourself without actually sort of saying like, just put that aside for a second. And let's actually talk about how to create, this is the ontology work, how to create a relationship to yourself. Forget anyone else. I always frame this in the world of being selfish. It's important to be selfish, but not the way that most people hear that, right? The way most people hear that is is sort of, depriving other people of love and attention and compassion and all of that. That's not what I'm saying. When I talk about being selfish, I'm talking about you got to go within. You've got to take care of yourself so that you can be in relationship with people in a way that is not anxious or avoidant. In this case, speaking about attachment styles.
Yeah. And so the point is to heal it, right? So like, why did you need to run away? And why did you need to run towards? Like, why are you frantically trying to earn this person's love? Why is that validation going to give you this? And, it's usually parents, right? So like usually original wounds. And so the gift of a relationship is to show you your invisible wounds, to show you the unconscious shadows and cobwebs and stuff that you are tolerating throughout your life. And so that's my point, is someone who's more of an avoidant has to see the consequences really hit them in the face before they're going to want to make any change. But that's similar of most human beings. Whereas the anxious one's going to come because they're like, I need this. I can't function. Like, and so they do need to focus on themselves. Well, what can you do today? What would be empowering? Like, what is the thing that person's not doing for you? Are they not showing up for you? Are they not texting you back? Well, how can you meet that need for yourself? Because it's showing you something that's lacking. It's showing you a void. And then that will actually create enough space for the avoidant. And the thing is, I see a lot of people like, you shouldn't try to change yourself as an anxious person so that the avoidant will like you again. Like, that's just probably what they're doing. Like, oh, okay, I won't text them today. And so the trap of researching and getting into the intellectual side of things is that, oh, now I know what to do to continue to be an inauthentic version of myself in order to be liked and not rejected. Because that's the wound they're trying to not feel. So that's the trap of information with this. Like, okay, I won't text them. Okay, they need space. Okay, I'll give them space in order to be loved. But the love has to come from yourself. And then they can mirror what they're supposed to do, is mirror the love that's already here. So if anyone's ever been in your life and you felt loved by them, they are showing you what's already alive within you, something that's already true for you. And because they leave doesn't mean it leaves. It's like the biggest thing with relationships, right? Like, even if your marriage takes different forms and the love is different and changes, is like, you can connect yourself and turn up the dial on your own love because you're the source of it. So learning that kind of thing frees you up to be in relationship without the needy push-pull. But it's very complex and hard to accomplish. Like, there's a lot to it. There's like the mind management side of things, the spiritual access side of things. But most people are starting with really basic, this is my problem. This is the pain I'm feeling. I need to make it go away. If they can text me, if they act this way, then I'll feel fine.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about this, and we've talked about this before, is your attachment style, as many things that we discuss, on this show about relationships, it doesn't mean you had to have a hugely traumatic thing in your past. I mean, sometimes it can be that, but it doesn't have to mean, it could just be something on the playground or something between, friends and,
your mom.
And it's what you made it mean. Yeah. It's what you made it mean.
Well, it's the emotion, right? So the emotion happens. I guess I'm not important.
Yeah.
All right. And then that's the beliefs. That's the origin of beliefs. There's a core wound. Oh, this hurts. I was forgotten. And then we add the story as a little youngin'. And we're narcissistic when we're kids, right? So it's all about you. So work of healing, because we do need others to thrive. And that's not a bad thing. Is those are all abandonment wounds, like even the loss of friends, the loss of a colleague liking you, like all of that can hit really hard because it's such a strong need as a person. And it can also be really off-putting when you're a confident, capable person in work, but emotionally we're very stunted on a large scale. There's not a lot of emotional, I like that emotional diversity, like the ability to feel all of your feelings. But I like sobriety too, because it's like you also just want to be very even keel about it so that the emotions can do what they need to do.
Yeah, you just want to be a stable container for the emotions to be able to flow without you being in reaction to them. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and he was going through some emotional stuff with his girlfriend. And, he's like, don't worry, man. Like, so they had a rough time. They kind of broke up and he was like, don't worry. I know what to do. I just have to kind of avoid her so she wants me back. And she knows that. I was like, I don't really think that that's actually a strategy that's going to work here, but, we get into, and he's like, no, but I've researched this. I've been all over the internet and on social media, and this is what you do. And this is going to, he was pretty confident that this was going to work. It didn't,
And that's
by
the
the
thing.
way.
It's an agenda.
Yeah.
Right? That's not authentic. And I say this to people all the time, like, gather data, pay attention to people, because then there's also just meeting people's needs. Like, if you're in a relationship, if you're texting all the time and the person's like, hey, this distracts me, I need to get this done. Can we talk after 8? That's very different from that person to meet their need and say, hey, I want to hear from you, but can we do it this way? And like, we're learning how to relate with one another, but as an authentic person that's sharing how to relate. And again, we're not taught these communications. So there's how to feel your feelings, but then there's communication skills.
Yeah.
What's the need you're actually trying to get met right now? Okay, you want to be in constant contact, or do you need to be in contact 5 times a day, or can you talk at 8? Because if you know you're talking at 8, you can relax.
Yeah. Well, what occurred to me in his story, and this is just for, people might see themselves in this, is he occurs to me as an anxious attachment style, right? So he was very clingy and despondent that, she was not wanting to do the relationship the way that he thought that it was going to go down. I don't know if she's avoidant or anxious or what, but why I brought it up is because in his internet research, the advice was effectively to feign an avoidant attachment style, that you're cool, you're distant, you don't need her, and that's going to show her, and then she's going to come. So the thought is, so we're always seeing ourselves in others, right? So if I'm an anxious attachment style, he or she is not reflecting that back at me, then I might pretend I'm avoidant to try to make her anxious, to make her want to cling to me. This is the dance that
it'll just
he was
never
trying.
work.
No.
The only way is to regain your power, and because they can energetically feel when they start to lose you. They can they can feel, like, even if you don't speak energy, everyone does. Like, everyone knows when you start dating someone, all the other exes start texting you, and it's like that you're smiling and laughing because everyone knows that's happened. Where, like, it doesn't make any sense, but obviously it's a thing. The energetics
FOMO.
of what's that?
It's FOMO.
But
They
how
see
do
you
they
on
know?
they see you
No,
on
but they
social
don't even
media.
see it. They don't know what
Okay.
you're doing. It's a phenomenon, right? Like, it's
string theory.
yeah, but it is, though. It's like they can feel that you have cut connections with them and they want the string there again, like different strings. But like, that phenomenon shows that, so when you get back into your own energy and you're not leaving yourself and you're not crowding their energy and you're not needing them to be a certain way, because the actual thing to do that's a loving thing as an anxious attachment style is to be okay either way.
Yeah.
No attachment to outcome. I would like to talk to you. I'm good either way, but don't lie about it. So who do you need to become to be good either way is now your work to do. That's going to make you better, whole and complete. Either that person comes back or you're just better, whole and complete. So, like, the manipulation to get the person back is common.
Yeah.
But
well, it reminds me of, in different philosophies, for example, in particular, Buddhism and Taoism, one of the distinctions and the principles that I think applies here is this idea of non-attachment, that all suffering that human beings, well, it's interesting that they call it secure, but it would be more accurate to call the fourth attachment style non-attachment attachment.
Well, the idea is you're secure with or without the person. So.
Which is how I define non-attachment. I am whole, complete, whether you're here or not. And that doesn't mean I'm indifferent to you. It just means that you're at choice, I'm at choice. And if you should choose to not want to be in relationship, I will still be whole and complete.
And there's a way to do that. So I've had that in an avoidant person where they're like, well, I'll be fine with or without you. But it's how you say it.
Yeah, it's how you say it. Yeah.
It's like,
do you really mean that? Is that true?
It's like, well, that's little spicy. That's not
Yeah.
like that's not an
Well, you don't
empowered.
need to say it if you're truly living it. It's just a known thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
this person will be
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to wear it as a billboard on your, I'm fine with or without you, like the U2 song or something.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
But yes, so the concept of secure is that your safety is your own domain.
yeah.
And then how you relate and then you're at choice and all of that kind of stuff. But mostly like there's just so many factors to it. Then I would say people that are either avoidant or anxious need to figure themselves out, which I call being a self-anthropologist. How do you need to communicate your needs on how frequently you want to connect? What's the type of communication? What the love languages is also a good thing to do. Like, what makes you feel loved? I feel loved when I have this space and time to do this, or what I
Mm-hmm.
like, that's intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking about your different styles, but you're coming closer because of it. And then so now the anxious person can be like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then
You,
they're like, oh, my need is getting met.
yeah, you're bringing
Okay.
up a huge thing. Communication of needs is sort of one of the superpowers here.
Mm-hmm. So you have to figure it out first, which
But
most
there's
people
also the
don't
fear of
know,
communicating it because of the fear of rejection that a lot of people will sit in.
which you should do anyway. Because
Yeah.
like the sooner you know the information, the more emotionally at harmony you're going to be.
Yeah.
Which I understand, but like if you say, "Oh, I would like this," or "I wouldn't like this," and
Mm-hmm.
but that's the non-attachment fear of or not curating yourself to avoid rejection. But you're
Mm-hmm.
leaving you when you do that right now. Self-abandonment is becoming very popular as something to say because if I'm trying to be something so you don't reject me, we're both losing.
Yeah.
You're
Because I'm
gonna
not
lose it.
me.
You're gonna lose interest too because you're like, this person stopped being a person. Like they're stopped
Mm-hmm.
being a dynamic personality to get to know and to lean into and to explore, like, which is the purpose of a relationship. So if you're like
Yeah.
constantly trying to like make yourself look like an Instagram page and like look a certain way and be a certain way, why?
That's what I was saying about the newspaper example.
I didn't get it. I was like, I don't give a shit. This has nothing to do with anxious and avoidant stuff, but okay.
Well, it does because our perception is our reality. And so I'm always
Okay.
curious about where do we get our perception from?
Uh-huh.
And who governs that perception? And all I was saying earlier is that there was a period in time in the information sphere where the information that would affect how we perceive ourselves and others was very limited. And
Yeah.
so there was a more sort of a more agreed upon sort of smaller worldview about who I am, who you are, and what's appropriate. And
Mhm.
then as the information sphere expanded, what's appropriate and acceptable also got really expanded and kind of blown out of the water. So I think people are just more confused that was my way of saying that I think
Mhm.
that in the information sphere, there's so many opinions, so many different viewpoints that I think is more confusing for people to try to make sense any of this. So the best thing people can do is kind of tune out, right? I think we were talking about this on another show, like the
Mhm.
whole, turn off, tune in, and
Mhm.
sort of thing.
I
Like
mean,
go
I'm gonna
within.
add or use it
Yeah.
because to me, it's data for me to use.
Yeah.
Like when I learned about avoid oh, yeah, that's the thing. Um, know when to know when to turn off the information, know when you have what you need for where you need it. That's all about being present, right? So I think for relationships in particular, it's a time when people can actually explore what their inside is experiencing and see it somewhere outside. And I don't think that existed before as much for the same reason.
Hmm.
And there's a value to that of
Yeah,
like,
I think there is.
this is
There's a
how I
value, but I think the
feel.
danger is so many people don't know themselves
Yeah,
that's where it becomes really dangerous.
totally.
Yeah.
But there's like, well, it's like anything, right? Like it's just the polarities. But
Yeah.
the value of, oh, that's me, but then not identify with it and then go, oh,
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna tend towards this. So if like,
Yeah.
you have like alcoholic tendencies, like if you're
Yeah.
like, if you don't want to be an alcoholic, you will just manage yourself a little differently. If you have sugar cravings, you'll manage yourself a little differently. It's about being responsible. But it's also that you can also feel more alive, right? We're going back
Yeah.
to the whole alive thing. Like, it isn't so you're policing yourself all the time. It's that you're like, oh, I'm just going to I call it keeping it on a leash. I'm going to keep my human mammal on a leash. Like, this tendency is all managed because I know it's there. I'm responsible for it. And when you're in relationship, you're now combining both of
Mm-hmm.
your human stuff together, and it's really complex, and it's not.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah, it's not easy. So if people think relationships are easy and you should just meet someone you're compatible with and you have the same lifestyle habits, it'll be fine. No, you were two completely different humans coming together. So it's always going to be complex, and there's always going to be stuff to grow and transform through.
Yeah.
And you can suffer through it and be in denial, or you could actually transform
Well,
through it.
I think part of the issue for a lot of people is they get in relationship to assuage or heal the thing that they don't have approval for and that is not whole and complete in themselves. So they're looking, that whole idea of you complete me in love, it's such a romantic idea, right? I
But
can't
that's
remember,
why
was
it's
it
such a great
Jerry Maguire?
opportunity to be like, that wasn't true.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying people get into relationships because they have the idea of you will complete me. But
Mhm.
actually, you want to go into a relationship when you are already complete. You don't
Yeah.
need someone to complete you.
I don't know. I'll go both ways because I've had relationships help me become more whole and complete,
I
but
agree
because
that can,
that was how I did it. And then I had a friend who was like, I need to wait until I am XYZ before I meet da da da. And I was like, why don't you just trust that you're going to meet who you need to meet and go through you need to go through? And this is where we started the podcast. That's how I started dating. I'm like, I'm just going to date, not willy nilly, but like without so much list and, well, they don't have this and they don't have that, and experience myself through other people, through relationship at choice. And
yeah,
it's
but I
been
think that's what makes
cool.
the way you do it unique. Like,
Mm.
I don't think, like, your whole idea of become a self-anthropologist,
Mhm.
most people are not relating to their relationship journey that way.
Yeah.
They're not relating to their relationship as, oh, I can learn more about myself through this person.
Yeah.
I think most people are getting into relationship because they're not whole and complete. And I feel like something's missing and I need this
Mhm.
person to fill that.
Mhm.
That's different, right? Like what you're saying is, and it's true. We are all a human becoming. Like we're always evolving, always learning, always adapting. But you can still be a whole and complete person and grow and evolve,
Yeah.
right? You can be both of those things. But that's not, I don't believe why most people are getting into relationships. I think
Is
most people end up,
exactly.
right?
Mhm.
So they're not saying I'm going to be, I hope they do. Now, if you're listening to this,
Mhm.
do like Jenna and be a self-anthropologist and see your relationship through the lens of what can I learn through this to make myself more whole and complete?
Mhm.
Not but it's not even that person. It's what you learn and what you integrate. It could be 10
Mhm.
other people who do the same thing,
Yeah.
right? So it's quite fascinating. I mean, whole and complete doesn't mean perfect. I also want to make this
Mhm.
clear,
Yeah.
okay? Because there's no such thing as perfect. And whole and complete is a sort of an inner knowing in
Mhm.
yourself of yourself. And it doesn't mean that yourself won't change over time, but you would know that as well because you're present, you're intentional, you're on the journey with your own growth. And
Yeah.
so you can be at choice and you can give yourself permission to try new things. And as the anthropologist, you can say, oh, that works for me or that doesn't work with me. And there's no judgment there if it
Yeah, or I
doesn't
didn't
work.
know that. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, "Oh, I didn't even know
Yeah.
that." And to be sourcing from source, and that's kinda gets into the spiritual realm where, like, okay, love is something I get to experience with somebody, it's not coming from somebody.
That's right.
And, I wasn't born this way, like, I went through the breakups and I was like, "Why did he leave me?" And, like,
He doesn't love
like,
me.
well,
Yeah.
how do I get that feeling back? How do I get that
Yeah.
back? Because then I will feel whole and complete, so I get it.
Yeah.
But the only answer is to find your own whole and completeness at
Exactly.
whatever level that is, to just know that this is always mine to know.
Yeah.
And then we get in relationship from there. But that's what's interesting about relationship as a transformational opportunity. Oh, I have some anxious avoidant. I have some anxious tendencies. I have some of, what's that about? Like, to get curious and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's the opportunity of relationship, is to look at where your blocks are. Look at where you go a little nutty. Look at where you get unsober with your
Now,
emotions.
can some people be anxious in some relationships and avoidant in others, or are they always just kind of
I
in
have
one?
been.
Okay.
I absolutely have been. Yeah. Like, I was the avoidant in my past relationship. Well, they're all past at this point, but like, and yeah, it was it's interesting being in that dynamic, because you feel more powerful. You're
Mm,
not, because you're still avoiding things. And then in this past relationship, yeah, like, I was like, how come you're, it was surprising. Like, I was like, oh, I have this in me still. Damn it.
mm, mm.
But I do think, because if the other person isn't communicating well and they're not being a safe, secure place, and they're not invested or committed to that, then yeah,
Mhm.
it's human. I think it doesn't matter where you come from, might
To
kick
pull
up
away.
some
Yeah.
feelings of that nature. So yeah, it's a whole spectrum, and it depends on the relationship dynamic.
Mm,
Most
mhm.
people are gonna hang out in the same one, because people are very habitual.
Yeah. Well, for those of you listening now, any tips though? Let's end with a couple tips here before we
I would
what
get
can they do to understand what style they are?
I mean,
Um,
that's when you look on the internet, though. Like, you look in the internet just to, like, "Oh, what is this?" And
yeah.
you don't have to read the whole book or anything. It just become aware of it. Where do you stand on it? How do you show up? What can you be responsible for? Or like, "Oh, you know what? I do shut down at about this point." Like, even when I'm hiring staff, I have a Jenna manual. I'm like, I can go a little nutty if I'm worried about it, like a launch, or I'm about to go on stage, and here's how to deal with me. Here's, I
Mm,
won't see your email if I feel overwhelmed, and I just give them a manual
interesting.
so that
You've done a lot of self-reflecting to be able to produce that.
yes, well, because
Yeah.
I've learned the hard way. I'm like, "Ooh, I
Mhm.
was bitched that person. So what could I do differently this time?" So
Yeah.
self-awareness. Don't lock in and over identify yourself with it. I am this, I am that. This must always go this way. Just how do you relate with others? Who are you when
Mhm.
you're scared? Who are you when you're feeling confronted? How are you going to
Mhm.
show up? And then once you really know who you are, I would watch the other person's behavior and all what they say. So like when you're in partnerships, let's say you're dating. So if you're in a marriage, this would be different. But let's say you're dating, like how somebody is acting is everything. How they show up, not what they say. So that would be the other thing. So, like, someone who is an avoidant might say a lot of things, but not show up that way. And doesn't mean you need to break up with them. I would just say, just for your own awareness, just pay attention to how people show up, because that's who they're really being. And then there might be a version in their head they want to be, that they're trying to be, and that's cute. But they will show you who they're being, especially within 6 dates. You should know almost everything you need to know about how they're relating by that point.
It reminds me of that saying that I can't remember who said it, but it's I can't hear what you're saying because who you're being is screaming so loud at me.
Yeah.
It's that, right?
Listen to that. Watch
Yeah.
that.
But a lot of people don't trust that.
No.
That's the thing,
And
you know?
so do pay attention to that, because they will show you. And then it's up to you to choose. And I said this with
Yeah.
just a client. I was like, this wasn't going to be her partner. This definitely wasn't a match, a long term match for her. But I was like, but you get to choose if you want to still date for fun, if you want to date for companionship, you get to decide.
Mhm.
Just know that that's what you're deciding. So once they show you who they are, that's the believe them thing. So if you are an anxious, which is probably who's listening to this, you are an anxious attachment
The
style.
avoidants are like, "I'm not listening to that."
Now, like I know we're painting them with a bad brush, but they just won't be as like
So
hungry to
proactive
find
in
out.
trying to figure this out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
care really deeply. I mean, that's what's beautiful about them.
Yeah.
That when they can do the work, and when they can be responsible for their feelings, and when they can be responsible for how they shut down, they will be the most loving, devoted, beautiful people. But if they're not doing that work, you're going to keep getting hurt.
There's a couple things too that I wanted to point out too, like the idea that anxious people are highly emotional and avoidant people are unemotional. I think that that's a inaccurate statement because the avoidant people are highly emotional as well. They're just really
Mhm.
good at suppressing and burying it,
Exactly.
right?
They're just as emotional, and
Yeah.
And it's not about painting them with a brush of them being like less than or somehow the villain in the romantic comedy of our lives. It's like they feel just as much, they just show up in a different way, and they're highly misunderstood. So I think there's a lot to be said where I do love that there's a lot of content out there to show what the reality. Tony Robbins actually has a really good YouTube on it, that to show the reality of an avoidant. I think it's, well, he'd work with so many men over so many years of those relationships. He would have seen every kind of it, that desperately want the love, but it's so risky to feel that pain. So their journey to be the lover, to be the man, to be someone secure, to be the safe place for their person is a journey. And if they're not going to go on it, they're going to keep perpetuating the same thing. So that's the thing, though. Like,
yeah. It occurs to me too that without realizing it, I feel like we probably socialized, I'm making a general statement, so there's always exceptions, but I feel like we probably socialize men to be more avoidant and women to be more anxious.
And, women can be avoidant. So it's like, it's just common.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
well, because we've said to men, don't show feelings, don't have feelings. So that would immediately start to kind of put them in the trajectory of avoid.
Yeah. And you'll lose your edge. You'll lose your edge and you won't be able to provide. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really insidious and sad, because that's a very helpless place to be, that you might love someone deeply and not know how to get out of this dynamic, but be completely not numb, but paralyzed by the depth of your emotion without the tools. But there's tools if you want them, and it'll actually make you more productive at work and make you more alive and in love. So with your kids, and okay, that's when men will come. Men in particular with the avoidant attachment, when they want to be a good dad, that will motivate them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, and all of this is to just say and summarize that if you want to dig more into these types of conversations and be able to work this out in a group, in dialogue with other people journeying along the same, with the same kinds of things that they're interested in, the same things that you're dealing with, that's the program that Jenna and I are putting together. We were calling it The Jungle and the Gardener. We're starting to think we might call it something else. It's a little more targeted, just to connect the dots for those of you who are actually listening to us week to week. You might be like, hey, what happened to The Jungle and the Gardener? We're thinking of renaming it, so just bear with us.
The relationship program, just
the relationship
till
program
further notice.
Till further notice.
And here's what I want to say is that there's a lot of people who are like anxious attachment coaching, avoidant attachment coaching. And what we're doing is become a whole human
coaching,
be in dynamic relationships. Like we will talk about erotic lifestyle. We will talk like this full-fledged
whole human experience.
Thing. Yeah. Which is different than just like, let me fix this part.
Yeah.
Not to poo-poo other people's programs, but that is part of what it makes it a little bit different. It's like a whole human program.
Yeah. It's a whole and complete human in relationship program.
Yeah.
And all the things you've ever looked at, or you may have come across online, the different themes and topics, everything's going to be covered in this. And so you're going to have it's really going to be a full and enriching program. So we're excited to get this going and excited to share more about it and excited to meet you. Okay. Well, Jenna, it was great as always. And I think this was a good one. I think we're going to come back to this a few more times. It's probably going to be woven into some other things that we're talking about, because it's just so, everyone's dealing with it on some level, right?
Well, then we just popped on and we're like, well, let's talk about it. So like, I'll, dive in. The thing is, for our program, just for like closing thoughts, all of these things that are called things upon things. Oh, let's call it this. And this is this thing. This is attachment. When I was a psychotherapist, when I was in school, it was the isolator fuser phenomenon. So like, it doesn't matter all of these names for everything. You don't have to learn all of this stuff. Like they're just names for a universal human dynamic. And so when you get to self-relationship and you get to relating authentically and vulnerably with humans, it doesn't matter what all of these things are called, because we're coming down to the source of how to make the most connection with yourself and with others. And so it's about simplifying it. So I just kind of wanted to add that is there's so many names for so many things. People are like, "Did you try this method?" I'm like, "No, I don't know all of the things that are out there because there are just so many names for everything." And I hope to demystify that too and just be like, let's just, to your point too, anxious, avoidant, da 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 da. But it
It
does
doesn't.
help to know. Mhm.
If people focus on becoming whole and complete people, which is what our program is really about, the rest of
Mhm.
this is irrelevant.
Yes.
It's totally relevant. It's like, see, my whole thing has always been get to the root. Don't stay
Mhm.
in the topic, in the
Mhm.
canopy of the trees with all the leaves of the topics. Let's get to the
Mhm.
trunk, the single thing. If we
Yeah,
can
me too.
address that, everything else gets addressed.
Yeah.
It's
Because
like
it'll
my friend
find
used
us
to be
through the
like,
leaves.
yeah, it's like it's like the theory of everything. Or, my friend used to say, we're looking for the one judo move that can take anyone down in any circumstance, right? It's like
Mhm.
that kind of power. It really is
Mhm.
power,
Mhm.
personal power to be that whole and complete. And you don't have to worry about all this stuff.
When I talk about transformations, you become so you, that which isn't you falls away. So it
Exactly.
doesn't matter what it was at
Yeah.
a certain point.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
oh,
Thanks
perfect.
everyone for tuning in. We will see you next time.
That concludes this episode of The Most Important Conversations. This in-depth conversation could set you on the path to self-improvement, which is essential if you want to be an effective leader and take meaningful action in your life. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of these stimulating discussions, you can find them at tmicglobal.com. Remember, the world is at a crossroads right now. You can't afford to waste this opportunity to take charge of your life, build meaningful relationships with others, and co-create a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.